Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Focus TV. I'm your host, Victoria Steve, and I have a fantastic show for you tonight. Kandra Clark of Exodus Transitional Community will be my guest tonight, but first, a quick break. We'll be right back.
Beyond Focus TV allows you to discuss contemporary topics affecting the Caribbean people on both a national and local level. The show features informed guests who offer insight, debate, and evaluate various issues. Beyond Focus TV builds on the station's mission to provide useful information to the Caribbean people in New York and abroad. Beyond Focus TV, where our viewing audience can get educated, informed, and empowered.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Victoria Steve, and tonight we have Kandra Clark of Exodus Transitional Community. Welcome, Kandra.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So tell me a little bit about the organization.
Sure. So I currently work for Exodus Transitional Community. We are a preventative reentry and advocacy organization located in East Harlem. 20 years ago, we were founded 20 years ago, and our founder and executive director, Julio Medina, he's absolutely amazing. He himself is directly impacted by incarceration. He served 12 years in prison before being released. And in 1999, he had been home for about 3 years before he was actually granted his first funding to start this organization. And it was from Lucina and Frank Hotch. They actually were the first donors of Exodus Transitional Community. And it was about 2 years after he came home that he first even got a volunteer space. There was a reverend called named Lonnie McLeod, who had opened up his church to him and let him use some of the space as an office.
Beautiful.
So he had been home for 2 years, really had this mission and this vision and this idea that he had created while he was inside prison. And it was really from him seeing so many people transition in and out of prison while he was still incarcerated. He couldn't understand why, if people wanted to go home so bad, that they would end up returning back right away. And he learned that it was really that period of transition and re-entering society and society's stigma that's against you, the fact that you don't have any opportunities for employment, especially back in 1999.
That's when he founded it.
Yeah, it was really unpopular to give people a second chance or a second opportunity. So he really instilled that and used that to form this organization. And, really used a lot of volunteerism. So there was a lot of people. He talks about the many, many folks that really volunteered their time to get Exodus started. And we're really working for a Metro card just to get back home. So it's really grassroots at its core. And then he also talks about, very humble beginnings, even in the office space. So now, we've just moved, we've just gotten a new location. So we actually have 4 sites. But 20 years ago, when they were in this office space in this church, the roof used to leak. And the case managers used to have to put umbrellas up over their desks just so they could actually work because the rain would come on. So, he really brings us back to humble beginnings. Back in the 1999 also, it was, kind of the height or part of the height of mass incarceration. Bill Clinton had just passed the crime bill. They were giving really harsh sentences to people who had been convicted of drug crimes.
Yeah, was that the 3 strikes rule or?
Well, no.
Okay.
Him really not having, the society not really giving people those opportunities to succeed. It was just a very different landscape. We were never talking about ending mass incarceration or how people were treated inside prison or jail. That was not even, a conversation that anybody was having. So to come from such humble beginnings and 20 years ago when, criminal justice reform or advocacy or even being a directly impacted person was not popular, not talked about, not wanted, we've come a long way since then. We still obviously have a very long way to go.
So what exactly does Exodus do? Like, how do you help somebody who was just recently incarcerated? They just came out. They want to come to Exodus. How do you guys help?
Absolutely. So first we have some preventative work that we do with youth that I'm really excited about. And so this is trying to keep them out of the justice system completely, right? And that, I think, is the goal, is to not have anyone incarcerated. And the preventative work, we have a common unity program, and it's funded through the DA's office, which is also exciting because, again, it's preventative. So it is the DA that's funding it, but these folks have not been, these young people have not been incarcerated or even directly associated with the criminal justice system. They're not on probation. They're aged 14 to 24. We break them up into different groups, and we give them psychoeducation groups on trauma, so they really can become trauma informed and learn how to work through their own trauma and still accomplish, their life goals and fulfill their responsibilities and not get stuck in that trauma, right? And then there's a advocacy leadership component on the back end of it also, so they get to actually go out in the community and really teach other people about trauma and how to advocate for their own community. On our reentry side, our reentry work, kind of the heart and soul of Exodus is our Walking Through the Wilderness program. And again, that's our soft skills job readiness program. And that's kind of akin to the book of Exodus, because what Julio saw while he was inside was people, coming home and then returning again to incarceration. And he akined it to the actual book of Exodus, where you have to walk through the wilderness in order to get to the promised land. Oh, wow. So that's why we named the Walking Through the Wilderness program the way that we named it. And again, it's a soft skills job readiness program where it really helps people focus on 6 life areas. So not just garnering the skills you would need to gain employment, but also one of the life areas we focus on is education. Another one is community. Another one is family. Because we know that if you don't really work on all these different life areas, that even if you get a job, you're most likely not going to be able to retain that job, because there's going to still be a problem with, one of your family members, or you're still fighting to get your child back, right? And you're upset about that. So you're focusing more on that as opposed to actually getting your work done while you're at your job. Spirituality is another area that we focus on. And again, it is not tied to any specific religion per se. It is tied to having a belief in something greater than yourself and having a purpose, knowing that you have a purpose in this life and that you want to fulfill that purpose, and that you're willing to work and garner feedback and self-reflect in order to meet that purpose. And then we also have an outpatient substance use clinic to really focus on people who have substance use disorders and really need treatment around that. We also provide medication assistant treatment. So holistically, we do provide the majority of wraparound services. We also have daily hot meals that we make sure people are fed. We make sure you have clothing.
Wow.
It's kind of the whole gamut, and we really rely on a lot of our partner organizations as well, because we are a smaller organization. We have about a $4 million budget, but really forming that collective leadership between you and your partners really allows us to maximize resources, even if we are smaller organizations, and really provide the best care and holistic care for our participants, and that's the number one goal.
That's beautiful. It looks like you guys really encompass the whole gambit. You guys take care of the family and the spiritual. I love that, because you're right. If anything is amiss in those areas, that could affect everything else. Yeah,
absolutely.
So this was Julio started this 20 years ago,
right? 1999. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary this year. Yes, and we now have a site upstate in Poughkeepsie, a site upstate in Newburgh. We have our site, which is on 3rd Avenue in Harlem, and we actually just got a site across the street from our current site in Harlem. So we have 2 buildings. Our new building is about 16,000 square feet. Our old building is about 7,000 square feet. So we're really excited to open it up. We are still looking for donations for our new building. We have a barber shop that we've incorporated into it. We really want to make sure our folks get jobs and have that special haircut for their job when they're going out on their interview. We have a media center. We really want the youth to get involved in creating TED Talks and, recording their own music. We want to incentivize. We know how many young people want to create their own music in studios and they can't afford it. Yeah. So they might go commit crimes in order to afford it. Instead of that, come to our program, do what you need to do for whatever stipulations or just for yourself, your family, and then we can give you some free studio time so you can record your own music.
Beautiful, beautiful. So give us a little bit.
Sure.
Hold that thought and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. I'm your host, Victoria Steve, and we're sitting here with Kandra Clark of Exodus Transitional Community. You were just telling us how you were help cultivating the youth in preventative measures, helping them like refine their skills with like through music, and that's really great. What other avenues do you like help refine their skills in like their line of work?
Absolutely. We also, have some really robust computer labs that we've incorporated into the new building. And again, it's around like digital media and design, different tech support. Like we really, young people, the tech industry is a booming industry.
That's where we're going,
in New York City. Like that is where we're going. And young people, I don't do anything on tech. I'm technologically challenged. I joke with them. But I go to them for everything when it comes to trying to help me post something, looking at our website and trying to figure it out. Like, they're really the wave of the future. So I love really thinking about some innovative opportunities. And the tech industry is an untapped industry. And we have an untapped labor force. So I think combining those two is going to be really exciting moving forward. So that's another area that we're really working on. And then all of our, general areas that we work on, people that come home from prison, whether you're young or you're older, there's some general industries, right, that a lot of folks go into, and we really want to break the mold on thinking that if you were incarcerated, the only thing you can do is building maintenance or cooking, right? We really want to let people know, you can dream big, you can do whatever career you want to. I have several felonies and misdemeanors, and I'm in this position now, and if you would have told me when I was a youth that I would have ever got to this position, I probably would have never believed you, right? And I did get in my head and think that it was going to be stuck doing a job that I didn't love, that wasn't my passion. So I think it's really instilling that hope and that empowering them to really dream big, and then working with different organizations to come up with some innovative training opportunities for them and get them into fields that are non-traditional for us.
Exactly. Help them to dream big.
Absolutely.
So we agree that prison reform is important.
Yeah.
Do you feel like society is looking at prison reform as how important it's supposed to be? I know with the Khalif Browder documentary, can never say that word, a documentary with that, it shed a light on what was happening with Rikers, but do you feel like it's widely recognized?
I feel like it is more widely recognized now. There are so many national campaigns and organizations who are working on a national level, and each organization that's working on their individual state level. But prison reform, first of all, I think that what we've just had right now in New York City around the Close Rikers campaign, I think every single person, if we really wanted to get to that place of utopia, would want to go for abolition, right? We all want a day where there's no need for jails or prisons because no one commits crime. That should be all of our goal. We should all be working to get to that goal. I think with our Close Rikers campaign specifically, this was an opportunity to decarcerate 2/3 of the population. Like we were saying, at its height back in the 90s, Rikers held on a daily average over 22,000 people. Right now, there's about 7,100 people on a daily average, and through the Close Rikers campaign and our really push and Mayor de Blasio's support on this, we've gotten the numbers down. By 2026, it's going to be down to 3,300 or less on a daily average. That is one of the most decarcerated big cities in America. So that's something we should be proud of. Then we can really, and this is honestly something that it frustrates me a little bit, because the 75% of people who should have already been decarcerated, the vast majority of them, their incarceration stems from the root causes, which is mental illness, drug addiction, trauma. We should have been having this conversation decades ago, and we should be having the tough conversation right now about when someone does go out and commit a really heinous act on a child, let's say, or just whatever. What do we do? What is a solution that we can come up with that doesn't equal a punitive measure of incarceration, but that still holds them accountable for, and especially allows the victim to have some type of, accountability in that sense also. So I think that's the really tough conversation around reform right now. It's really getting past all this common sense stuff that everybody should be on board with. No, everybody should know that we should not incarcerate people who have drug addiction, mental illness, or trauma, right? We should be able to look at those root causes of incarceration. Now let's have that bigger conversation about how do we really eliminate the need for jails and prisons completely, and we have to work collectively to do that. So when I think about reform, I think about getting the most that we can get for the most amount of people, but also still working towards that end goal, like not giving up, knowing that you're not going to get everything all in one. We live in a democracy. Even if we get 10 of the things we want, there might be 2 that we don't want that we're going to get stuck with, right? And that's part of living in a democracy.
Yeah.
So how can we keep educating people and really build this collective army of folks that come together and say, hey, this is not right, we need to change it. Let's really be thought leaders and come up with innovative solutions.
Exactly. So for people who might not be familiar, when you mentioned close Rikers,
Yeah.
why close? Like for the people who's like, why specifically Rikers? What's going on there? What's with the?
Not just Rikers. We're closing big jails all over, all over the country. Rikers has been it's built over a toxic land. It was used as a landfill before they built the jail over it, and most people don't realize that.
Did not know that.
So even the gases and the noxious oxides that are coming out of the ground is harming people physically, and that's not just the people who are incarcerated. There's correctional officers that are retiring that now have cancer because they worked on the island their whole life. So it's even from that perspective, from a health perspective. The building is decrepitated, right? They are over 80 years old. There's no line of sight. So there's long hallways and corridors which leave blind spots all over the place. There has to be a one-on-one ratio because of the long corridors, right? So even the design of the building was not designed based on humanistic principles or normal principles, right? Like it was really based on dehumanizing folks. And then the culture of Rikers, I didn't realize I spent 4 months on the Rosem Singer Center, and the sexual harassment abuse that I experienced during those 4 months, I didn't realize that it had been happening for so long. I'm now on the Beyond Rosie's campaign, which is a complement of the Close Rikers campaign, and we really focus on the needs of women and what we want the new facility for women to look like, and decarcerating the number of women in New York City down to 75, right? Right now there's approximately about 400. And women in the 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2018, all the same story of being sexually harassed and abused. So the culture of violence that has to change. It's not just about closing a building. It's about overhauling and transforming our entire system, the design, the culture, the programming, and how it's operated, and how many people we incarcerate. And there's a couple things too that we really need to focus on, and I want to give some shout outs to the Coalition to End Isolated Confinement and Jails Action Coalition. We need to end solitary confinement. That's something that the Close Rikers campaign and several people have been working on, but right now, Jails Action Coalition and the Coalition to End Isolated Confinement are at the forefront of that. We need to make sure that these new facilities have no solitary confinement in it. Solitary confinement equals psychological damage, and it's been proven. There are other countries that are way more advanced than us. I actually just got to go on a Euro trip to Norway and really see their facilities and what their principles were based on, and it is like night and day from there to here of how they treat people who are incarcerated and what services they get provided, what they look like what their inside rooms look like and housing unit look like. They have their own keys. It is very humanistic, where we're very dehumanizing.
Okay, so hold that thought. It is a lot of good information.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this commercial break. Welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. I'm Victoria Steve, your host, sitting here with Kandra Clark. We are discussing Exodus Transitional Community, and we were talking about preventative measures, and we were talking about the correctional facilities and like how solitary confinement is. And I'll absolutely agree. I don't know why that's still a practice. It's even in media shows like How to Get Away with Murder. That was like a whole trope in, I think, the last season. It's just wrong. You just because you make a mistake doesn't mean you have to be psychologically punished. That's just wrong. So what are some of the other unseen repercussions of like the prison system? Like,
Sure.
Like what would you say affects people that were incarcerated besides that?
Sure. So I think trauma just in general.
Yeah.
I think anybody who's incarcerated, you're going to experience trauma from day one. But I think outside of that, even after you come home from incarceration, when we talk about repercussions, it's the loss of family, it's the loss of children. Even while you're inside, I can't tell you how many mothers, and, luckily I didn't have that situation. My son was 8 when I made it to Beacon Correctional Facility in New York. And I had been in and out of jail his whole life, so he knew what jail was. So I was very upfront with him, and I told him I was incarcerated. But I can't tell you how many mothers I've spoken to in the last almost 8 years since I've been home who lied to their children and said they were at college or they were at camp. Or so it literally it damages families. It breaks that bond with children. It is so hard to get that bond back. It has taken me, nearly 8 years, and finally my son tells me he's proud of me, and, he's almost 17. He reaches out to me, and it took so long to get to that. It was a lot of me when I first came home, texting him, calling him, emailing him, and him not responding, and I just had to keep at it. Getting an employment. Now it is easier than what it was 20 years ago, when Julio first came home, but still getting
easy.
an employment. It's still hard.
Yeah.
And getting a career and not a minimum wage job is really hard. And if we really want to help people get out of intergenerational poverty and, intergenerational incarceration, we need to give people careers. We need to give them opportunities to actually get that career where they can afford the house, they can afford taking care of their kids and not, scrambling and living paycheck to paycheck. I think there's a ton of licenses also that we are trying to eradicate. You can't get X, Y, and Z license, not just a driver's license, anything. I mean, there was at one point a barber's license you couldn't get.
Wow.
There's also different license, for driving or, even being a notary public. And there's so many different things that on federal law or on state law, they say you can't do because of X, Y, and Z. So I think now we are in a way better, place with employment. We actually just partnered with the New York, New Jersey Port Authority, and we're really excited around the redevelopment of the airports. So that's going to be thousands of job opportunities.
Beautiful.
And we really want to make sure that our folks have an opportunity to, get those positions
and those
and
are
get
careers.
the training. And
Yeah.
those are careers,
Those are
exactly.
careers.
Some of them are even unionized. So it's really reshifting, and building those relationships with larger employers and breaking down the stigma. And the more that they can come meet with us and see that, hey, 90% of the staff at Exodus are directly impacted. And we have the education and the credentials and the expertise and the experience to do this work. And we have the empathy, which most people don't have if you haven't been through these same kind of situations. That lived experience really equals that empathy and us understanding. So the more that we can keep building those relationships with employers, I think the far better we are. But the list goes on and on about the repercussions. Even housing, even buying a house. You're going to have a higher interest rate, even if you have a higher credit score than your partner. But if they don't have a history, you're going to get a higher interest rate than them. So even buying a house, and I didn't realize how long it would follow you. My friend just bought a house, and he hasn't been incarcerated for 26 years. And this is what happened to him. He got a higher interest rate than his wife, and his wife had a lower credit score, but had no period of incarceration ever in her life. And that's why they gave it. So even 26 years later, people are still suffering for the crime that they committed, but they've served their sentence for.
But it's really a life sentence.
It's a life sentence. It really is. So the repercussions go on, and those are things that we have to continue to talk to even our family members, our neighbors. It's really bringing it back to the community and getting people to understand and breaking through a lot of stigma.
So I remember when I was researching the organization, you guys mentioned something called justice term, like justice involved.
Yes.
Yeah. So what does that mean? What does it mean to be justice involved?
So, being justice involved, and there's two different ways that you can see it, is really anybody who's directly impacted by incarceration. So you've been incarcerated, you've been arrested, you've been on probation, you've been acquitted, you've experienced firsthand having cuffs on you or dealing with, the police and some form of incarceratory system. What I want people to understand, too, is that everybody is impacted by the justice system, though. When one person goes to jail or prison, that impacts their family member, their children, their neighbors. It impacts the entire society. That's someone who is not able to be a tax-paying citizen and help build our economy in that community if they're inside. So I really want people to understand that all of us are impacted by the justice system in one way or another. It's just really getting people to see that and to understand that. And that's why it's a societal issue, and it's all of our jobs to help transform this. I'm always telling people right now, taxpayers pay $340,000 per year per incarcerated or detained person on Rikers.
Oh, wow.
So if we can afford to pay that and you're paying taxes, then you're part of the problem. You need to be part of the solution.
Beautifully said. So before we let you go, how can people get in contact with you?
Absolutely. So you can Google us. Our website is www.etcny.org. All of our leaders have their bio and their contact information on the website. My personal email is kclark, KCLARK, @etcny.org. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And this has been another episode of Beyond Focus TV. Thank you for watching. Tune in, and you can also follow us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Beyond Focus TV show wants and needs your feedback. Did we blunder? Please let us know so we can improve. Was the show helpful to you? Drop us a note so we can share the success with our staff members. Is there something you think we could do better? We welcome new ideas and new approaches to old ideas. Do you have a great suggestion? Let us know and we'll work on it. If you would like to share your comments anonymously, please send us an email at info@beyondfocusmedia.com. If you want to get in touch with the executive producer directly, send him an email at gene@beyondfocusmedia.com. We really look forward to hearing from you.